Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Professor Cole Matheson here with another video lecture. Today we will be discussing timed essay exams. There's an ongoing debate regarding writing and the teaching of writing, and it's very well summarized by Mr. Ed White of Arizona University. And much of what we'll be discussing today is coming directly from Mr. White, Dr. White rather. He is a seasoned veteran in composition studies, and much of what we'll be discussing today comes directly from his book, Assigning, Responding, Evaluating, a Writing Teacher's Guide. If you would like a book review on the entire text, I have one published through the Material Writers Interest section of TESOL International. If you Google search my name, Cole Matheson, along with the title of Dr. White's book, you will get a book review which overviews the entire text. But for our purposes today, we will be analyzing only Dr. White's suggestions regarding timed essay exams. And this is very important. Timed essay exams are a component of TOEFL. They're often used as diagnostic tests before any teaching happens. Oftentimes we have diagnostic tests in a timed writing environment. And also for other purposes such as exit exams, as well as your general essay exam as well. Often there is a component of writing involved. So what we'll talk about today are the different kinds of essay exams, processes for analyzing essay exams and responding to essay prompts, as well as some example prompts to illustrate exactly what is required in succeeding on an essay exam. Okay, so first we want to analyze writing as a process. Okay, so when we first talked about writing as a process, we oftentimes are going to refer back to Aristotle. Aristotle gave us the rhetorical canon. And of course, the Greeks in ancient Greece and around Aristotle's time were not as interested in the rhetorical canon for writing. Naturally, they were more interested in speaking, in oratory. They wanted to deliver great speeches. And Aristotle had this scientific process, which he dubbed the rhetorical canon. And this is, of course, something that should be practiced whether you're doing an essay exam or if you're composing from home in an untimed environment. The rhetorical canon is a great strategy for succeeding in any kind of writing environment, or of course in Aristotle's time, any kind of speaking environment. So this is where I'd like to begin our discussion today, is with the rhetorical canon. The rhetorical canon is, of course, going to begin with what we might call today as pre-writing. Aristotle's term was invention. Invention is very important. It's not possible to know exactly everything you will say until you begin inventing. This is a great word because every essay that you produce is a brand new piece of writing. It is impossible to write exactly what someone else has written, just as it's impossible for an invention to be a recreation. Naturally, inventions are something that are created for the very first time. So this analogy is very useful for us. We can think of invention as the very first process in writing. It is the discovery process. Invention is the process of thinking about what you know about a topic, thinking about what you would like to say about a topic. Invention should take a significant portion of your thought process in terms of creating new ideas for your essay. It may be that new ideas come to you during the composing process, during your actual writing of the essay exam. And this is, of course, something we can think of in writing to learn. We might not know exactly what we know until we spend some time with invention or with the pre-writing phase. Okay, so how does one invent? Well, this is, of course, going to be related directly to the writing prompt, but there are methods first explored by Peter Elbow, known as free writing, just writing without limits, writing without special attention to grammar, writing just to write, trying to get your ideas down on paper, trying to overcome writer's block, and trying to find some great ideas, which then may be later organized for a more coherent essay. That's essentially what we're talking about here in terms of invention. Very important process here. Other methods of invention might be creating an outline. It might be doing a thought web in which many different thoughts are organized into a web of relationships. All different kinds of things here. Some individuals just prefer creating a list of potential supporting details. However you invent is up to you. You should have some practice with invention prior to sitting down for an essay exam, so you don't have to then decide how you would like to invent during that timed environment. It's very important that you utilize your time because it's very valuable in an essay that is timed. Okay, we can think of arrangement next in terms of the rhetorical canon. Arrangement essentially here is the organization of your thoughts. You can't organize your thoughts until you get your thoughts down on paper. Okay, so essentially here, if you're using an outline for your invention process, as you begin to arrange your outline, you might reorder certain thoughts. You might cross certain thoughts out that might not make it. If you're dealing with a free writing context, you're of course going to want to pick apart each different aspect of your free written paragraph and organize it into an outline. And the same thing with a thought web. What do you want to include in your web? How are you going to arrange this information? Okay. After we've decided how we might arrange our topic, we should think of style. What do we mean by style here? Well, a mark of good writing is the demonstration of style. Everyone has his or her own style, and it's something that's very difficult to teach. It's something that more emerges the more and more you write. But one hallmark of good writing is using context-specific vocabulary. Okay? Oftentimes you want to use the vocabulary of the prompt. How can you recreate the vocabulary of the prompt in your own writing? What other related words might be used? You don't want to create too much repetition of language. You like to do a diverse list of words. This could even be a part of your invention or free writing phase. Oftentimes, great writers in their conclusions will end with some kind of ambiguity of words. They might pick a good word which has multiple meanings and then close with this word, allowing the reader to think in depth about how a topic can be expressed in multiple ways. If you're writing a particular metaphor about a particular process, you might want to think, what is the context-specific vocabulary of this prompt, of this metaphor? How can you create connections in words across different contexts? This is what we mean by style here, being strategic with your words to establish some kind of tone or some kind of unique delivery. Again, this is something that would happen after free writing, after the invention phase. You don't want to spend too much time with style as you invent. This is something that you'd want to do after composing your piece. Okay? Of course, when we deal with the rhetorical canon here, we're talking about memory as well. For Aristotle, memory was more closely related to how will I remember my speech. Well, for our purposes here, we want to think about how will our readers better remember our composition. And of course, this is going to be intertwined with style. Demonstrating good style, demonstrating context-specific vocabulary is a way to make your piece more memorable. If you're dealing with writing at home, instead of the in-class timed context, you might include images in your writing. Of course, if we think about anything that's published today, there's usually some kind of multimodal communication. So they're communicating with text and with images. This is another example of how things can become more memorable within your own writing. And of course, delivery is the final piece. Of course, with Aristotle thinking in terms of speeches, how can you deliver your language, which involved even hand gestures in the speaking context, but how might you deliver your text? And we're going to talk about specific ways of delivering a timed essay exam a little bit later in this video lecture. Okay, so some folks are resistant to writing as process. And first, I want to talk about why demonstrating a writing process is very important. Okay, because oftentimes people feel that writing is something that happens in an inspired moment, and they don't like to change what they've written because they feel like the best thing that they've produced is that first try. Well, this is a misconception in writing. All true writers follow a writing process. Okay, so this is what I want to talk about next. The rhetorical canon in itself is a process. You're moving from invention all the way down to delivery in 5 steps. Well, what we should think about in terms of writing process is inspiration versus perspiration. The misconception is that only in certain contexts will you be inspired to write well. Well, this is not the truth. Writing well involves perspiration, and that, of course, is being used to play with the rhyme inspiration, perspiration. By perspiration, we mean sweat, and by sweat, we mean effort and time. Good writing takes time. It takes invention. It takes revision. Okay, so it's very important that we think and understand that our writing process involves perspiration more than inspiration. Yes, some of the best elements of writing may be inspired, but they are perfected or they are improved through perspiration and a long thought process. Okay, writing essentially, as Ed White mentions, is craftsmanship and critical thinking, okay, not inspiration and mechanics. Mechanics are very important. You want to deliver your essay in an edited form, but more importantly is the demonstration of critical thinking and that you have something to say about your topic. Okay, so that's where we want to move next in terms of critical thinking and craftsmanship. Okay, so we have our writing prompt. This is crucial. The writing prompt organizes your essay for you. Okay, you want to be careful not to get off topic from your writing prompt. It may be that you're writing very interesting paragraphs that aren't connected to the writing prompt. They may be very well inspired, but they don't connect to the prompt, and therefore they are falling off topic. Most common in terms of why students lose points on essay exams is that not that they aren't writing well in terms of mechanics and inspiration, they're not going back and critically analyzing what is the connection to this paragraph and the prompt. Am I getting off topic here? When we are inspired, we like to write, and then we think once it's written, we can turn it in. That's not always the case. We want to think about putting in some of the perspiration through a writing process here. Absolutely crucial. First step in your writing process, even before invention, is an analysis of the prompt, specifically an analysis of the verbs. This is the most important part. Verbs, commonly referred to as action words. Well, in your prompt, the action words are telling you to take action, right? You want to analyze what specifically are the verbs being expressed here, because that's the activity or the action that you want to demonstrate. Okay? Verbs are everything. There may be more than one verb. This implies that you are going to demonstrate more than one action in your prompt. Okay, so very important to understanding a prompt is understanding what it's asking you. We have a couple examples here of common verbs in prompts. Summarize. Well, what does it mean to summarize? Of course, you are taking a text and putting it into your own words. It's asking you to demonstrate a summary of a text. You better be sure that you are summarizing the text. Essentially here, you could produce a great reaction to a text, but fail to summarize. The writing could be very good, but it fails to demonstrate the demands of the prompt. Summarize, of course. Put the text into your own words. Commonly here, we might say analyze or discuss. In my opinion, these verbs are quite vague, and they will usually encourage the student to say as much as possible out of the topic. How much can you say is often what discuss is being responded to. Students respond to discuss by saying as much as possible about a topic. Well, students should be very careful to avoid saying as much as possible. Okay? If you have a word count, it may be important to say as much as possible, but that's not the goal. The goal is to be concise. The goal is to be coherent in terms of the organization of the essay. Okay? So if we think of these two words separately here, analyze can mean a number of different things. It could mean interpret or react. All of these different things analyze can mean. Is a bit of a vague term here. You want to be sure that you are approaching analyze with a specific task. What do you want to analyze about the prompt? Okay, but discuss even a bit more vague. How can you make discuss a useful verb? Well, thinking of how you would organize your response is one way of managing this verb discuss. It is quite broad. Mr. Wright, Dr. Wright here refers to a file dump. This is, of course, a metaphor of technology here. We should avoid saying as much as possible or demonstrating a kind of file dump in your process of writing. You might be inspired to write very much, but have you put the perspiration into the writing process? Have you analyzed for organization? Okay, it might be that you cut out a number of different paragraphs in your file dump in producing a coherent essay. Okay, so absolutely crucial here is analysis of verbs. You have to ask yourself, what are the verbs of the prompt? How am I going to react to the verbs in the prompt? That is the key to staying on topic with an essay exam. Okay, so again, after we've analyzed our verbs, we want to start applying the rhetorical canon. That's what's important here next. So I'll make myself a bit of room here. Well, what will be our process for a timed essay exam? We're going to, of course, stick with the rhetorical canon, but let's use a little bit more applicable vocabulary here. Of course, the first step is to plan your time. Do you have an hour to write your essay exam? Do you have 20 minutes to write your essay exam? Do you have more than an hour to write your essay exam? This is very important because you want to divide up however much time you're allowed into different sections. Okay, it's very important that you devote different steps to your writing process. And all of this is based in a plan of your time. Okay, so we can think of the time as a kind of circle chart here. Well, how much time should we take for planning our essay? Well, of course, if this is a 1-hour exam, here, you should plan your time something less than 5 minutes, right? You should understand that in 1 hour, we should probably have our full plan down in less than 5 minutes. Okay, so we might say that the first chunk here is to plan. All right, and this is the very first step. So the question is, with the rest of the hour, what are we going to focus our time on? Okay, well, of course, you want to next offer your plan for invention. You want to incorporate invention into your plan. You should really focus for a significant portion of time on your invention. So if we have 5 minutes here, we're going to say something about 15 minutes here perhaps. Something along these lines. We probably would have our line go a bit further down here. Okay. 15 minutes for invention, for pre-writing, for free writing, for mapping, for listing. Okay. This is very important. As we mentioned earlier, all of your ideas should be flowing out freely. You should be getting an understanding of what will be the content of this essay. This is your invention plan. Okay, then you want to offer a bit of time for arrangement, probably 10 to 15 minutes for arrangement, or for drafting your outline. Okay, so here we are. We're about close to 30 minutes into the exam, and we have only planned. This is crucial that you are planning, so then you can execute your essay based on your plan. If you spend too much time within these contexts, you're not going to have time to write the essay out. And of course, leaving space for writing to learn. Maybe a good idea will come to you in your composing process. Okay, of course, you want to devote a significant portion to your composing process. We're going to deal here 15 to 20 minutes. Okay. This is for the composing process itself, writing the essay out. And we could even take it up to 30 minutes, depending on how much might be discovered during the writing process itself. Okay. So after we've written our essay, we've had time to write out our thoughts based on our plan. We would then want to take another 15 to 20 minutes to revise and edit. All right. Between composing and revising, it's important to take a brain break. You should think to yourself, when can I clear my mind? Because the best revision happens with a clear mind. It is very difficult to clear your mind when you only have 1 hour of time here, but you should take at least a minute, maybe two, to try to sit and think of nothing. Okay? If you can clear your mind, the mind will be then refreshed and can look at hopefully the essay with a bit of new perspective here. Okay, so what does it mean to revise? You of course want to be looking to make sure that your paragraphs demonstrate coherence. You want to have clear topic sentences for your paragraphs, organized in introducing supporting details. All of this is based in the prompt. What is the prompt asking you? Be sure you are revising, making sure that your essay and your paragraphs are connecting topic sentence and thesis statement. Okay, and of course editing, devoting time for grammar and mechanics, thinking only of sentence structure at this point. All right, you notice in the invention and the arrangement and the actual writing, we don't want to think too deeply about too deeply about sentence structure. This is really something that should be done in the editing phase. Okay, get your ideas down, get your essay composed first. Second, go back for sentence structure. If you worry too much about sentence structure in the composing process, it will probably distract you from inventing, arranging, or composing your essay in a coherent fashion. Okay, So then we have the remaining 10 minutes left over for the class, and my pie chart isn't exactly proportional here, but for the final revision here, we're thinking in terms of what else in the essay might need to be added, what else in the essay might to be taken off. Okay, so this will be your final wrap-up with another 10 to 15 minutes here. Okay, looking over all of the different aspects of the essay, making sure that your outline is connecting to the essay and putting any last-minute finishing touches that you may need. And the final wrap-up, this is quite important, that during the writing of the essay, that if you are writing by hand, that you are composing using double spacing. Okay? You notice here in the final wrap-up, I do not say rewrite the whole essay. Okay? That is, in the words of Dr. White, a waste of time. All right? It's very important here that you don't waste your time rewriting an entire essay. Okay? Instead, in your final wrap-up here, you should be looking for any sentences that you might need to add, or of course in the editing. Then, with your double spacing, you have an extra space below each line of text to include extra information. Okay? So again, in your final wrap-up here, you want to be thinking about the culmination of all the steps, right? Making sure that your invention and your arrangement process have manifested in a coherent essay which has been revised and edited. Okay, so this is essentially here what you should be telling yourself within 5 minutes. Okay, if you have 1 hour, thinking in terms of 15-minute chunks. If you have less time than that, your chunks, of course, are going to be a little bit smaller. Okay, so we haven't talked yet about the different kinds of essay exams. Essentially, there are really two kinds that exist in academia. Okay. And our process will be maintained across the two kinds. First, we have personal experience. Excuse me. And this can be contrasted with responding to texts. All right, so personal experience does not require any source information. We also have responding to texts. Okay. Regardless of which type you're writing, you need to make sure that you're first creating a plan and an outline and a response that is designed around the essay prompt verbs. All of this is maintained regardless of which kind of essay we're writing here. Okay, so usually for essay exams, starting out in a course, you will have a personal experience essay exam. Okay, and essentially here, it doesn't require research. You can write all of the supporting details just based on what you know or what you have already experienced in life. You might be asked to describe a particular person that had an influence on you. Of course, here the verb is describe, which means physical characteristics. The second part of the prompt might be explain how this person had an effect on you. Well, of course, we're offering an explanation of specific events that have had an influence on you, all based in the prompt here again. Okay, so of course here we're thinking about personal experience first, and I have a basic prompt here which will be very similar to most essay exams based on personal experience. Describe a person you knew well when you were a child. Your object is to use enough detail that your readers can picture the person clearly from the child's perspective, and at the same time understand from the tone of your description and from the particular details you choose how you felt about the person you describe. Okay, so what are the verbs here? Of course, describe, as we mentioned earlier, but then we have specific guidance here. Your object is to use enough detail. Okay, so we're using detail of the particular person so your readers can picture, right? We're using very much so imagery. We're trying to paint a picture in the reader's mind. And at the same time, understand from the tone, oftentimes tone is established through particular word choice, style, context-specific vocabulary, how you felt about the person. So not only do you have to describe physically, not only describe how the person impacted you, but also be able to apply specific details which illustrate these demands of the writing prompt. Okay, so of course here we would have an introductory paragraph which would probably introduce yourself and the person, because we have a connection here between you and another individual. Then we want the physical details. Okay, these are the physical details of the person, so we can picture them clearly in your mind. Okay, and we also want to be thinking in terms of what else might be included here. Okay, so is it just physical details? Right, we might be able to say why, or a particular event, which illustrates why this person you knew well as a child had an impact on you. Okay, and of course here we would want to conclude. All right, so we can think of this as being accomplished in 4 paragraphs essentially here, with an introduction followed by a thesis statement, which captures both physical details and why a particular person had an impact on you, with topic sentences introducing each. We'll mark by TS here, and then of course some kind of concluding statement. Which probably offers some kind of summary of what was said specifically. Okay, so we haven't done any writing yet. We haven't thought of any specific details. We are only thinking of how this essay might be arranged. Okay, and of course from here we would want to begin our free writing process, our mapping process. That way we're 100% sure that we are on topic with the prompt specifically. Okay, so personal experience essays are quite common. Personal experience can also be used for responding to texts. And that's what I'd like to turn to next here. Okay, personal experience might be used as a supporting detail if you're responding to a text which lends itself to personal experience. It's very, very important that you do not confuse these two, because if you are trying to respond to a text but you offer only personal experience, well then you're writing in the wrong genre. You're not writing according to the demands of the writing prompt. Okay, so you might use personal experience as a supporting detail, but when we're responding to texts, what's most important is that the text is the focus of the writing of the essay exam that you are producing here. Okay, also very important within responding to text is avoiding plagiarism. Okay, you might have to use a specific aspect of the text. Be sure you're putting it in quotes, and be sure you're including some sort of bibliographic information that connects to the text. Of course, your professor should understand that you're writing in response to the text and using the text, but it's very important to put quotation marks and citations or bibliographic information where necessary. Okay, so it's important as well to not just quote. Yes, we should include our quotes, but we must respond to the text. We must react to the text. We must say something personal about it. Quite often in responding to text, students will offer brilliant summaries, but then will not react, and then will not offer some sort of interpretation or application of the text. Okay, so still working from Dr. White's book here, we want to move towards a quote from Thoreau. Okay, Thoreau is a very famous American author, and here we have a text that's being analyzed here. People suffering unjust laws have to decide if they should obey the laws or not. Most people decide to obey them while they work for change, since breaking the law might be worse than the unjust law itself. But it is better to break the law, since the law itself should allow the best citizens to make changes. If your prompt says react to Thoreau's text, well, of course, what should we do first? Of course, we want to have another introduction paragraph here. Right? We want to offer some sort of background information. Perhaps we could analyze who Thoreau was, an American writer. We also want to offer a brief summary of the text. What is the text saying here? Okay, we have to demonstrate understanding of the text. But we cannot stop there. We have to also react to the text. This is crucial to responding to text, is offering some kind of reaction. And then also we could conclude this with 4 paragraphs as well. Could be more, depending on how much invention work gets done, but minimally 4 paragraphs would satisfy this prompt. Okay, so what exactly does this text mean? Well, it's saying that some laws are unjust, and that we as citizens have a responsibility to disobey them so that they will change. Okay, so you could offer a paraphrase, something similar to what I just offered here. You might also include Thoreau's quotes directly, which illustrate the summary of the passage. Crucial here, though, is demonstrating some level of paraphrasing, and again, some sort of citation or some sort of bibliographic information here. Okay, in terms of reactions, this is where we have much variation across student responses. You might offer an agreement. You might disagree with Thoreau's text. Of course, if you agree or disagree, you would have to say why. This is perhaps when personal experience might come in, right? Because it is a very useful quality of writing to offer a personal illustration. What does this text mean to you specifically? This is where you might enter with a few examples of personal experience in your specific reactions. Okay, but it doesn't have to be just agree or disagree or offer personal experience here. What's crucial, as we mentioned at the beginning of the class for essay exams, is that you're demonstrating critical thinking. Okay, we're not just summarizing. We're not just offering a file dump. We are saying something specific in reaction to the text. Okay, there's no one specific way that you must react. But the point is that you are taking the text and making it your own. You're proving critical thinking through demonstrating and writing that critical thinking. Okay, so here we have, again, personal experience and examples of responding to text. Okay, you want to make sure that you are connecting both paragraphs to the essential purpose of responding to texts, or you want to make sure that you're connecting both paragraphs here to the personal experience. It's all based on what the prompt is demanding of you. Okay, sometimes we might have bad writing prompts that don't necessarily ask for specific things. Something like Beethoven and Mozart. Discuss. Right? This is one example prompt from Dr. White that doesn't actually ask for anything. If that's the case, which hopefully does not happen, you have to create a more specific prompt. Something like compare and contrast. You might want to look at some specific aspect of Beethoven and Mozart. Okay, so that's where we'll pick up next time, is managing prompts that don't ask for specific things. But for now, that's where we'll end, with prompts that do ask for specific things. Look at the verbs. Analyze what's being asked of you. Create a plan, not only for your outline, but create a plan for managing your time. And you will succeed as long as you put in that perspiration. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. If you have questions, be sure to email me or post your comments below.